Hi, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order by the pledge of the flag, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Yanni, I would like to make a motion to appoint Todd Cronin as the chairman of the meeting pro tem.
I second.
At this time, I'd just like to apologize for Ms. Kowalski and Ms. Castro Giovanni could not make the meeting tonight. And we will move into comments and reports of the Board of Education and Correspondence. Ms. Santos?
Sure. So the correspondence is all via email. On 8/12, Denise Lane, 21-22 school year. 8/12, Gina Weinberg, school opening. 8/12, Barbara Curry, optional mitigation policy, let parents decide. Nicole Hen on 8/12 as well, 21-22 school year. 8/12, Lindsay Stinelli, mask. 8/12, Jennifer Tester, mask. Ken Corin on 8/12, school opening. 8/12, Matt Power, 21-22 policy concerns. Also on August 12th, Jennifer Myers, this evening's board meeting. On 8/14, Geraldine Garcia Salo, NYSED guidelines. On 8/15, Karen Morea, masks must be mandated in schools this fall. 8/16, Maria Matthews, in support of masks. 8/16, Monica and Ken Altamirano, keep our students in masks. Jamie Van Dyke, request for liberty of all, on 8/16. On 8/16, Geraldine Garcia Salo, National Institute of Health School Guidelines. On 8/16, Brianne Bichette, mask in schools, please. 8/16, Beth Tagliamonte, universal mask for the reopening of schools.
Thank you, Ms. Santos. Next is Superintendent of Schools.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just want to thank the board for allowing me to have another meeting regarding the update on the reopening of schools. So I thank you for your time again. A lot has been going on this summer. We've been trying to stay up to date on everything, and at the same time focusing on the reopening of schools, which is always a top priority for us, to have the schools ready for our students. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the entire custodial staff, security staff, the ground crew, and all the administrators, the principals, and directors and supervisors, and my entire team for working literally around the clock to make sure that everything is ready. So a big thank you. Tonight, I am very excited that the board will vote on a resolution about the appointment of Dr. Joe Pasquera. He's going to, my recommendation is to have him as the new Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. Dr. Pasquera is not new to the district, has been here for 6 years as the supervisors of social study. I'm always impressed about his leadership style, his commitment to the students and to the community, the deep understanding that he has about the curriculum. He has a beautiful family, a dad of 3 beautiful children and a wife, and he's a progressive leader. I'm excited to have him on our team. And I know that we're not supposed to congratulate Joe on this achievement in your career, but I'm sure the board would be supportive of my recommendation. But I want to be loud and clear about the fact that Dr. Pasquera is someone that he understands the importance of work that we have as educators and I am so pleased to put that recommendation to the board. So, Joe, why don't you stand up, and we'll congratulate you at the end. In terms of one of the things that we're going to discuss tonight, which is the main focus, is about the reopening plan that we have. So I created a presentation that is going to be posted on the website, and so you will have an opportunity to review and obviously go through at your own time. One of the things that is very important is pretty much our main objective for the presentation and when we think about the reopening of schools. And it comes down to three very simple points. And the points are, the first one, the most important one, is to keep the students and staff healthy and safe. The second is we want to make sure we respond to the student needs, and that's critical. That's what we have in every school. We are here for them, to educate them, and to make sure that everything is out there and everything is ready for them so they can learn and move forward. The return in-person learning is a priority. As a father, I've seen my daughter in our senior year being in our room, not coming out of the room, being remote. It was awful. And the worst part about that was the fact that senior year, no matter what I do, no matter what I can do in the future, it will never come back. And that is something that when I saw those 6 months, it was something that I will never want to see any of the children that I have in my charge in schools go through that. And the message of keeping the schools open. You know, obviously that's a priority to keep the doors open, because that will give the students an opportunity to experience all the initiatives and the work that we have. That is our main objective. Our main objective is not to be scientists, is not to be researchers. That we leave it to the medical doctors, that we leave it to the experts, to the CDC, the New York State, the Department of Health. Our goal is, because there is no replacement for this. That is our main objective, and I think we should stay focused on that. In terms of the guidelines that we have reviewed, we obviously follow the Nassau County Department of Health, the New York State Department and New York State Education Department, and the CDC. Those are the guidelines that we follow. Those are the guidelines that once they're given out, we're supposed to follow. And we have reviewed the documents, and I'm sure that is circulated around some of the guidelines that came from the New York State Education Department. So when you look at those guidelines, from those three major groups, you'll see that one of the things that they are talking about is the universal indoor masking is required for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors, regardless of vaccination status. Unless densely crowded area, people do not need to wear a mask outdoors. Students benefit from in-person learning, so that the return in-person learning in the fall of 2021 is a priority. Everybody understands that the distance learning was a band-aid to a situation that it was very difficult to make it work. And we did the best that we could. Physical distance should also be maintained to the greatest extent possible. Now, when you're looking at the protocols that we put in place, we reviewed everything, and again, with the main objective of keeping the schools open, so we don't have to quarantine students, we don't have to make sure that they are sent home and they spend time at home. for a long period of time and a large number of students, we came up with some recommendation to the board, and I will go through some of them that we have over here. Our goal is the reopening of protocol would be to have all K-12 students return to in-person learning. There would be no hybrid or remote instruction. If there is, as per 504 guidelines, if there is a medical condition with the proper documentation, there's going to be a meeting and then we follow up on that. Mask will be required indoors for all students and staff regardless of vaccination status. And no mask would be required for outdoors, including recess and outdoor physical education. Mask would be required on school transportation. Classrooms, we will maintain a 3 feet social distance whenever possible. Social distancing will be maximized during lunch, and athletics will continue in the fall as right now. When you look at the COVID cases will be reported to the Department of Health, and that is something that is outside of our control. We need to follow those regulations, and contact tracing will be conducted as necessary if there is a positive case. Parents and staff will be notified of close contact. Field trips will be monitored on the monthly basis. And one of the things that I'm sure would be very pleasing to a lot of students would be the removal of barriers that we're carrying around. Lockers would be available to students. The temperature scanners would be available but not required. And daily screening survey will not be required. Parents, though, would be encouraged to obviously continue to monitor the symptoms, COVID-related symptoms, for their kids. Disinfecting, in terms of the disinfecting, will be conducted on a daily basis. Code-required ventilation is going to continue to be in place. Outdoor air ventilation and air intake will be increased, obviously, from now on, and exhaust fans will run 24/7, and the frequency of filters and the replacement of frequency of filters will be increased. We're going to encourage the water filling bottle stations. And in terms of physical distancing, right now the CDC recommends that schools maintain at least 3 feet of physical distance between the students, and that's what we have in most of our classrooms. In terms of the physical distancing, is obviously on the buses will not be required, but they're required to wear a mask. And CDC also states that a large group eating in the cafeteria that should be limited if the transmission rates increases. One of the things that has changed from last year, for a few months ago, was the contact tracing requirement. First is the contact tracing is required if there is a positive case, but new definition of close contact has been established. So students who are within 3 to 6 feet of infected student, where both students were wearing a mask, they do not need to quarantine. So if we both wearing a mask and we are within 3 feet and I tested positive, she doesn't have to quarantine. That's a massive change in terms of those protocols that we have in place. And so you can understand that if we go back to the main objective of keeping the schools open and keeping the students in school, the decision of me recommending to the board these procedures are for the sole purpose of keeping students in school, learning, and not stay home in massive number to quarantine. That is my only objective. The only objective is to make sure that at the end of the day, they are in school so they can learn from the amazing teachers that we have in our school. In terms of the prevention strategies, they are consistent with what we have done in the past. Universal masking, obviously, when home or when feeling not well, stay home. Physical distancing, ventilation, hand washing, contact tracing, and cleaning and disinfection. That has not changed. When you're looking at the summary points, one of the suggestions that we had from the board is to compare notes and say, what is the CDC, New York State Education Department, and Nassau County Department of Health recommend, and what we have in place. So we put a quick table together, and you could see that pretty much we're matching with everything that they are recommending. When you're looking at the summary points, it's important that there is an understanding in the community that my recommendation to the board is not that I do not respect the research, I do not respect opinion, is not that I don't respect some community feelings about what we should do, but my recommendation is based on what would be the safest thing for the students to keep the students in school. And so when you look at the key points of this presentation and the key points of my recommendation, the first and most important point is that this is a recommendation that this plan is fluid. Things are changing every day. Every day you're reading in the paper. I don't need to go into the politics of what's going on out there, but you know that every day there is a change. So in this moment in time, this is my recommendation to the Board of Education. We will monitor and make adjustments. Listen, I want nothing more than get rid of this and get back to normal 100%. But right now, based on what we have, that's the recommendation that I'm making to the board. Continue to cleaning and proper ventilation and other protocols that we have in place will continue to be enforced and will stay in place even after, because that is a good practice. And a lot of good things came out of this COVID nightmare. And we will maintain all those protocols and continue to review. My final point is that I stated multiple times, and is that the safety of our children is a priority and will always be a main priority. As a superintendent of schools, the last thing that I want to do is recommend something and one of my students will end up in a situation getting sick or even worse. I will not be able to sleep for the rest of my days, and that is something that I will never recommend to the board. So with that, I just want to thank the community for listening, and I'm not sure if you have any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ianni. No questions? Okay. We'll move on to opportunity for the public to be heard for agenda items. In accordance with the open meetings law, school board meetings where school district business will be discussed are open to the public. The Oyster Bay East Norwich Board of Education welcomes public comment at its meetings. The Board of Education will respond to comments and/or inquiries in the appropriate manner. This portion of the meeting is designed exclusively for agenda items. A sign-in book is provided for those residents wishing to address the board. In order to be recognized, you must be signed in. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes. The board president will call you to the microphone in the order in which you have signed in. Public discussion is prohibited regarding matters of relating to an individual's reputation, privacy, or right to due process, which in the same way could be violated. A second commentary period is provided for non-agenda items prior to adjournment. We thank you for your participation and cooperation. Okay, we have a few. Okay. First one is Ms. Gina Weinberg.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I have to say, you guys all put your masks on for the occasion. Last week I was here, no one had a mask on. So, congratulations for putting on a show here for everybody. And plus, none of the kids wore masks because my son taught at basketball camp and nobody wore masks in the building, outside the building, or anywhere else. So thanks for putting on the show. All right, well, all of you on this board, as elected officials, have sworn to uphold the U.S. Constitution in this state and all the civil and human rights that go with it, decided to cave to opinions, viewpoint, and guidance, and ignore the law to make people feel safe from a virus that doesn't affect our youth, which has been proven, doesn't spread in our buildings, that's been proven from this district's internal data, which, by the way, I'm still waiting for, and doesn't kill our kids ages 0 to 19 nationally, proven by Johns Hopkins University's current report. Well then, in my opinion, the board is the problem. I appreciate all of you, I truly do. However, it is up to you as the board to take full advantage of local control and using the law, the data, and the science to set the children of our district free from this tyranny and give us parents our rights according to the United States Constitution to have the choice to mask or not. My child, my choice. And before I step away, I have a few questions I just want to ask. Does the board have anything written into the 2021-2022 policy regarding mandating mask, a mask exemption policy, or enforcement of mask wearing or weekly PCR testing? Is there anything written in the policy? From
We do-
prior, during COVID?
Yes,
There-
we do not have that.
Okay.
Okay.
And do you plan, do you plan on writing anything regarding mandatory mask wearing or enforcement or PCR testing into future policy to force the children and the staff into wearing masks and/or taking a vaccine?
So right now, the board has a resolution on the agenda that approves the superintendent of schools to provide procedures for this pandemic. But at this time, we are not requiring in terms of vaccination or anything
Okay,
like that.
and just so everyone can hear, when is the next policy board meeting, in case any of the parents want to be able to listen to what policy is coming next?
Policy, there is a policy committee that you will see tonight. Some board members will be appointed to it.
Okay,
But policy is review on a kind of 3-4 months basis, but it's up to the board to review certain policies.
okay. And so I just want to clarify, mask wearing in any school, any of the school buildings in this district is technically unenforceable by law, am I correct? Okay, so how are you enforcing it? By what law? I'd like to know by what law are you enforcing it, since there's no state mandate, there's no county mandate, this is strictly guidance, and from what I'm being told, guidance is not enforceable. So I just want to know who in the building is going to enforce it?
So
Is
right,
it the teachers? Are you going to have security guards making sure every kid has a mask thrown on their face? I want to know if I want to know who's enforcing it. If there's no mandates as of now, nothing came from the county, you're going strictly on guidance from CDC and the Board of Education, who should have no involvement whatsoever in the health of our children.
so if the county has a guidelines, right?
Yeah, but the county
Let-
still
Can
has-
I,
the
can I,
county
Ms.
still
Weinberg,
hasn't
can I
compiled.
finish?
Okay.
I gave you time to ask the
Sure.
question, so can you give me time to
Yes.
answer? Thank you. So if the county has a guideline, correct, and we are within that county, we have to follow those guidelines. So in terms of the reopening plan and the guidelines of asking students and staff to wear a mask, right? The guidelines would be enforced the same way they were enforced before. So if a student is not wearing a mask, is in violation of the protocol that we have in place.
Okay, I understand that, but the county, there is no law. The county pushed everything onto you
Yeah,
locally.
so me-
This-
so
Onto,
me-
onto the local board.
Correct.
This is guidance.
Correct.
This is guidance. This is not law. The
Correct.
county could give you guidelines. It was up to all of you on the board to make the decision.
Can I-
So you took it upon yourself. You're following guidelines, but
Yes.
understand, this is not law. This is not law.
I
Because the
understand.
county took the liability off of themselves to put it on you. So either way, whether you were mask optional, all masks, no masks, the liability is still going to stay, whether somebody who doesn't want a mask sues the school.
Okay, but
or
let me
somebody who-
explain something. You understand one thing that is loud and clear. It comes down to me making the recommendation to
right.
the board.
Th-
So,
okay.
as a superintendent, I am not going to take a chance that one of my students gets sick and die, and I gotta live with that. So as long as I'm the superintendent
Okay,
in this
so you're
district,
going to take responsibility then, whether all the kids have masks and a child in this district, whether vaccinated, unvaccinated, gets sick, and that child dies, so you're letting us know that it's on you basically now.
I'm telling you that on me is the fact
Okay,
that I'm
that's fine,
following.
as long-
No,
as
no,
long as you're-
listen,
that's
you
fine.
you don't let me finish. What I'm taking on me is the fact that I'm following all the guidelines from CDC, Department of Health, the Nassau County Department of Health, that recommend that the safest way to open a school is to mask all the students. That's what I'm taking on me.
So you're doing what they're telling you doing, not what you
I'm do-
yourself, okay, that's fine.
I'm doing what they're recommending.
Okay. All right, so
Dr.
then,
Yanni, so if a child is if children are without mask and they're exposed to COVID, are we required, not guidelines, are we required to quarantine?
Yes,
If the children have a mask and they're 3 feet apart, are we required to quarantine?
no. We
That
don't
is a
have to
large part
quarantine
of
if
your
they wear a mask.
recommendation
Yeah.
as well, right?
Yeah.
so there's no law, though. There's no law about quarantine. There's no law about social distancing.
Aren't
Again,
we
these are guidelines. These are guidelines. It's not written in law. It's not mandated by New York State as of yet. So
We're
how can you enforce, how could you even do quarantine? How could you even do 3 feet spacing when there's no law for it?
There is no
This is
law, but-
guideline. This isn't law. This is guidelines. Again, guidelines should be unenforceable.
And I'm going to address the board. So as we noted to you, that a school district has the right to set rules and regulations as long as they are reasonably related to a legitimate objective. And that is the basis upon which your rule that children wear masks are required to wear masks in school.
Okay, so who is enforcing them? I want to know by which law you're using to put this on the district, and I want to know who's enforcing it.
I am.
Okay, so you're enforcing it. You're the law. You're the law
I'm
of the
not the
schools.
law,
It's
but
basically what she's saying.
But I'm not the law, but I'm recommending to follow the guidelines. They are the safest for our students to be in school.
You can recommend all you want. My question is very simple.
Yeah.
Is it enforceable if it is not law in the state of New York? And I legally, can the district enforce it? That's what I'm asking.
As the superintendent of schools, I have the authority to make a recommendation to the board about the safety of our children, and that's my recommendation.
Okay, so if a child comes into school unmasked, so you're going to pretty much call the police and have them come and remove the child? That's basically what's happening? Or you're going to call the parents and tell them that the child has to be picked up?
Ms. Weinberg, the greatest thing about this district is that we have an amazing group of students, staff, and community members. Last year, we did not send one child home because it was not cooperating with us. So our students want to be in school, and they will cooperate with us. I have a full confidence of that. I'm sure you do too.
I'm sure with the comments I've seen. Okay, so I'm fully aware, as the rest of the audience is, that in my opinion, this is completely unenforceable by anybody in the building. And if it is, it will be a violation of our rights and our children's rights under the Constitution of the United States. And I do have the right to exercise my free will, and I do have the right not to comply or give consent to anything the board puts forward, as none of this guidance is mandated by the federal government, by the state government, or by the county at this time. I want to say thank you very much to all of you for giving me the opportunity. He's not. I was going to take his minutes, but thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the board again and the superintendent for their service to our community and for scheduling tonight's meeting. Our country was founded on the principle of limited government, and we started tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance and said the words "with liberty and justice for all." I hope that we have not lost the meaning and principles of those words. Limited government and individual liberty is fading away across our country with experimental vaccine and mask mandates for airlines, events, employment, colleges, and now our district. Compliance with these government and corporate requirements will set precedents that will become irreversible, and compliance is consent. Some of you believe that the safety of the group is more important than the individual right of parents to decide whether or not to mask or vaccinate their children. But the false and manipulative premise of the public good is how communist regimes and dictatorships justify denying individual rights. I know this personally, firsthand, because I was born in communist Poland. There is no such thing as group rights and group liberties, only individual rights. This pandemic is unprecedented. Many people have died, suffer, and mourn today. But we have to remember that the survival rate is extremely high. We have effective treatments available. Natural immunity is long-lasting, and children's immunity against this virus is stronger than the adults. And you can choose to be vaccinated. But the long-term effects of masking children is unknown. And the cure should never be worse than the disease. Remember, first do no harm. Let me remind the board that constitutional rights are never suspended under any type of emergency declaration, and we are no longer under any type of state or federal emergency. The board has sworn to uphold the laws of this country, and everyone needs to be familiar with federal code, especially Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights. No one may use their position or authority to deny another person their rights, and I will be upholding my rights and those of my children. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just have a couple of questions. As I understand it, this is a recommendation by the superintendent to the board. The board hasn't adopted these recommendations, correct?
That's correct.
And it's August 17th. When are we opening schools?
September 1st,
So when is the board going to be voting on these recommendations?
tonight.
Tonight?
Yes.
Well, I think it would have been of great benefit to everybody, whether you're for this policy or you're against this policy, if this had been provided to the community prior to tonight's meeting, so that we could speak to the policy intelligently on the recommendations. I mean, this is unacceptable. You provide the policy in, 15 minutes? You're voting on it, you're allowing us to speak on it, but we're hearing it for the first time. I don't think that's and it's August 17th already, and we're opening up schools on the 1st, and there's been no meaningful opportunity for the community at large. I mean, we have a few parents here tonight, but I think it would have been a great benefit to the parents, for everybody to be here.
Is that, just let me know when you're done, and I'll
finished
answer
for the
your
moment.
question. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead with your question.
No, I mean, well, that's my question. Why wasn't this
So you're-
done earlier?
Okay, so, like I said before, we had a meeting scheduled on August 10th. At that time, we did not have all the information necessary to come up with a plan, because all the information was not provided to us. There has been a back and forth between the New York State Ed Department, the Department of the Governor, and on and on and on. The minute we received all the information and we were able to process everything, talk to the principals, talk to the directors, talk to my team, I asked the board to have a special meeting. This is a special meeting. This is not a scheduled meeting. The next meeting would have been on the next meeting will be on September 14th. So I asked the board to convene a meeting to discuss this right now and not wait another day. Unfortunately, I feel your frustration, but I can assure you that we are feeling the same frustration, that I'm opening schools, and I don't know what's going on August 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Respectfully, Superintendent, the state I believe as early as June of this year, or even perhaps even earlier than that, said it was going to be to the, you're shaking your head, but they said it was going to be to the individual districts. This was a decision that was to be made by the individual districts.
They specifically
on
said
August
there was
5th,
going to be
Then,
guidelines.
we've
right?
had these CDC guidelines, there's New York State Department of Health guidelines, we've had them. We've had them since January, if not earlier. So the fact that we're first acting on this, or making a recommendation, or acting on it on August 17th, and we're opening up schools on the 1st, again, unacceptable. Because we're
that's
not,
an, but.
you're not giving the
but
parents a meaningful
that-
opportunity to
you-
respond to it.
But
That's my point.
Your point is not correct, because on August 5th, 2021, the New York State Department of Health released a statement requiring that it would not issue any guidance. That was on August 5th, after we've been waiting all summer about that. So the fact that you're telling me right now and tell my board that we didn't act promptly on this, it is not fair to my board, it's not fair to my team, and it's not fair to all of us sitting up here, which we have been working round the clock to make sure that the students are back in school in a safe way. Trust me, the last thing I want to do is spend my entire summer thinking about a guidance that was not provided to us by the people in the New York State Department and everywhere else. And they're still going on, because the lieutenant governor that is going to be appointed next week said, wait tight, because maybe you're going to have mask for everybody mandate. So the statement that you made is not correct. I understand that, because you're not involved with all these memos that we've been leaving every single day, waiting for guidance that never arrived. Trust me on this.
Listen, respectfully, Superintendent, again, I understand how the state works, I understand how the local governments work. I've been working in them for well over 11 years, and waiting for the state to do anything is ridiculous. Waiting for the county to do anything is ridiculous. And again, the clear statements from the governor's office and early on were that this was going to be it was going to be up to the individual districts, and it was going to be their choice. It was going to be for them to act on.
Their
And
point,
again, that we're doing this at this date and hour is not acceptable.
trust me on this. I understand that you feel that is not acceptable, but trust me on this, because I want the community to know loud and clear that for an entire month, they have been telling us that the guidance will come. And I cannot put forth a reopening plan that goes against a potential guidance that is coming and never came. So trust me on this, because you don't know me, but I can tell you one thing. I do not wait to the last minute to get things done. But thank you for your question.
Well, thank you. But we are.
All right, so move on to personnel actions. Professional personnel, resolved upon a recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the following professional personnel and civil service personnel resolutions as listed, and it goes to the bottom of page 3. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Under question? I gotta do the addendum first? Okay. We gotta do the addendum first.
Congratulate Joe.
Personnel, professional personnel, resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools of the Education of the Oyster Bay.
I had added my name to the sign-in sheet, but I don't know. Sorry to interrupt. I had added it late, so I don't know if you had it.
Yeah, I think she was at that second sheet.
Just wait.
Yeah,
Oh, agenda items, okay, I thought it was
That's all
not
right.
agenda.
That's okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Wanna do this first?
Yeah.
I'm
We
sorry
want to
about that.
congratulate you.
All right. Hereby approves the following professional personnel resolutions as listed, and it's 2.8, Mr. Pasquare. All right, so, have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Under question. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Joe.
All opposed?
Finish your agenda. Finish finish the agenda. You could finish up the whole agenda and then we'll go back. Yeah,
What's that?
started the motion, so finish the agenda, go back. Yeah.
Right, okay. Threw me for a loop. On the first part of the personnel actions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carried. Now we'll go back to,
New,
all right.
new
we'll go back-
business, page 4.
what do I do?
Yeah,
This?
we'll do this later. New business, page 4.
Okay. All right, new business. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the following new business resolutions as listed. It goes down to the bottom of page 5. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. We'll go back to agenda items. I apologize. The late sign-in. Francesca M.?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is also Francesca, like yours. It's nice to meet all of you. I just moved here from Queens 3 years ago, and basically I left my family and work behind, so my kids could grow up going to school in a small, family-oriented community the same way that I did before the schools in Queens became overcrowded and overbuilt. We moved here in October 2018. I had my second daughter June of 2019, and we entered into lockdown February of 2020. I had an 8-month-old and a 2-year-old at the time. I spent 12 to 13-hour days with them 5 days a week, while my husband worked at the hospital during the peak of the pandemic. Being a natural germaphobe, I was initially terrified, and we followed all safety protocols. We separated my kids from their grandparents and family for 6 long months. I'm not going to bore anyone with articles, statistics, and data you've already heard. I've been fortunate enough that my kids don't give me a chance to watch the news because they want to watch their shows. And I get to hear firsthand daily accounts of what's actually happening in the hospital, not what the media is portraying. I know many people are now fearful because of the Delta variant the media is constantly talking about, but viruses mutate and weaken over time. COVID is here to stay indefinitely. There's no way to eliminate it. We have worn masks for the past year. Some of us have gotten vaccinated and we're still in the same situation. Time and natural immunity is the only answer. I cannot continue sitting back and letting our kids suffer. They need to return back to normal. And we as parents should choose whether to cover their faces with a mask or not anyone else who is deciding based on guidance from sources such as Fauci or the CDC, who have spoken out of both sides of their mouths since the start of the pandemic. They're breathing in toxic levels of carbon dioxide and waste while wearing a mask. It's difficult to breathe in. Friends of my daughters who were in school last year had nosebleeds and headaches constantly. I went to my doctor's office a few months ago and the secretaries were all wearing masks with an oxygen tube looped inside of their mask. What does that tell you? Unfortunately, kids don't have the same luxury to tube in oxygen into their mask like these secretaries in the doctor's offices did. As a mother, I can't stand this anymore. We're all angry and defensive. We're all battling and bullying each other over social media over what solution we all think is best. We're not all suddenly medical experts. The only way to make both sides happy is to make masks optional. Let the parents decide for their own child. If you feel like a mask protects your child, an unmasked child is not a threat. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Last year, my daughter did not wear a mask the entire year of the peak of the pandemic. Dance class was optional mask, and ironically, they shared the same classroom as Learning Tree, which was mask mandated. I'm honestly disgusted and discouraged and disappointed, and I really feel hopeless for these kids, many of whom who have natural immunity already. We need to let the parents choose. We pay school tax and we're entitled to a choice. And again, speaking somebody who was terrified at the beginning of the pandemic. My husband would come home and I would make him change in the driveway, all of his clothes. I would make him walk in with a mask. A mask gives you security. It makes you feel more comfortable. But my best friend, I gave COVID. Do you know how I gave her COVID? By wearing an N95 mask in a condo by myself that she walked into after me wearing an N95 mask. Totally separated. I wore a mask the entire all of year, and here we are again. It's not effective. If it was effective, I'm the first one that would want to keep my kids safe. I don't like being up all night with a sick child. It's not, you know, I just think that we need to keep everyone happy, and we need to appease both sides. And by doing, you know, saying that, you know, masks are required, you're angering the other side. If you feel that masks are effective, which I did think myself that they were last year, seeing my husband put in 12, 13-hour days and him telling me every day what he saw and still telling me to this day what's happening, I would say go for it. But everyone should do what they feel is comfortable and what makes them feel safe. And at the end of the day, you're right. You do have to sleep with that decision that you don't want to harm a child ever. You don't want, you know, to say, okay, you know, welcome back in September. Nobody wants to, you know, nobody has to wear a mask and, you know, hope that everyone's safe. But like, you know, I hear what my husband tells me every day from coming home, being in the ICU, seeing patients. I know what's happening. I do not watch the news because I don't feel that they're telling the truth. And that's just my opinion, and I honestly hope that you give us a choice. My daughter is going into pre-K, and I don't want her going into school like this. That's it.
Thank you.
Enzo M. Thank you. Motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Good evening.